All right, we are good. All right. So, what's up, y'all? Always a huge pleasure, an honor to have Meherwan Irani on here with me. We've known Meherwan a long time. He's been a customer for years, and he was in our second book. We've done video up there of some of his. In fact, Meherwan, check it out, man. I got my Buxton Hall.
Nice.
Yeah, man. That's right.
Love
I
it.
love this thing. It's been worn quite a bit. It's nice and thin and soft now. I love it. But we filmed up at Buxton Hall, and we've done the podcast. We've done all kinds of stuff with Meherwan. He's always so kind with his time. And Meherwan is the chef and owner of Pani Restaurant Group in Asheville, North Carolina. And Meherwan, looks like you're hanging out your home office right now. Is that right?
At the home office. I hope you don't mind if you hear the dog barking in the background, lawnmowers going. You know, it's real, man. This is what work is like nowadays. Your life is a part of your work, and your work's a part of your life, and you can't keep them separate anymore.
Well, my dog sure is howling back there. Look, hey, let me ask you a question. Have you been home through most of this? Have you been able to go into the restaurants, or are y'all even open yet?
Our restaurants, when it first hit, so I want to say March 14th, 15th, the minute we realized this was real, we shut down our restaurants almost completely, even for 2 months, all of them. And we all sent our staff home, and the core team, the executive team, started working from home. Our servers and staff were all able to get on. Were laid off. They weren't fired. They were just laid off, and luckily, because of the extended unemployment benefit, they were able to, be okay. And then we reopened the restaurants in July for takeout only, but we still all work from home. Anybody that's at the executive level or the company level or the corporate level, as we call it, we're all working from home. So there's a little bit of like, not guilt's not the right word, but we've got staff and servers and kitchen workers that go into work every day, so they're having to live a slightly different reality of being on the ground. And then we've got another set of a team that's been more on the business side of things, where we have the luxury of being able to work from home. So I make sure to stop by all the restaurants at least once a week. So there isn't the sense like I'm up here in my ivory tower at home working while the troops are on the ground. But there is this disconnect, and unfortunately, it's just a part of the new reality.
Yeah, man. Well, it's a good thing that you've been able to do that. You got a great team supporting you, and I know they support you too. One of the things, I want to ask you about a couple of things, because I read this thing in Men's Health. You were recently in Men's Health magazine, and did they do a podcast too? Is that right?
Yeah, we did a Zoom type thing, Instagram live little show for 30 minutes with Spencer Dukoff, the editor, and then they also did a little article afterwards.
Okay, so you talked about, I got it written down here in my little book. Is it Jugad? How do I pronounce it?
Jugad, yeah.
Okay. Which is like, as you said in there, like MacGyvering it. So you but the overarching point of that article was having goals and not plans, because plans always go awry. Tell me more about that, because I think that's a fascinating concept. It's something I agree with wholeheartedly.
Well, it's sort of it's baked into me culturally, growing up in India, where just nothing's on time. Nothing really works 100% the way you need it to, and you just sort of get in this mindset that that if you're dependent, if you're making plans that are based on things working out perfectly, and things showing up in time, and people doing what they said they're going to do, literally, whether it's waiting for the plumber to show up your house, or you're working on a big business deal, something about living in India just makes you go with the flow and not get frustrated if the way you'd set something up didn't work out the way it was supposed to. uh, often it's not just that people flake out, it's just that circumstances change. It's the infrastructure in that country has got tremendous pressure on it from just, the billion people living in a landmass a third the size of the US. So everything from, a rolling blackout in the middle of a conference call to, the power, the phone not working, to somebody not showing up because they got stuck in a traffic jam. So growing up there, I just got used to this idea, or kind of ingrained in me, that there's many ways to get to what you need done. That don't focus on, well, we said we were going to do it this way and now it's not working, so everybody freak out, right? That it's all doom and gloom because the plan didn't work. And it's been so applicable during this pandemic. I mean, this pandemic's been the perfect example of all the plans that we made for how we wanted to grow our restaurants and just went out the window. But the goal of growing the restaurants is still there for me. I'm not going to stop doing what I do just because of this, hiccup. I mean, it's a big hiccup, but still, in the long scheme of things, we'll look back at this, and it was a year, maybe a year and a half, maybe even 2 years of hardship. So having that flexibility of not being attached to, this is the only way this plan can work, but having the mindset of saying, we got this goal and things may change and it's okay, and you got to be adaptable. So a lot of people keep asking me, like, how are you doing in this pandemic, Will? And I keep saying, actually, not bad. I mean, there are things that are hard, but I never got into this business thinking that it was going to be smooth sailing from point A to point B and that everything was going to work out exactly the way it was supposed to be. So, and the word for it in India is jugaad, which literally, as you said, means to MacGyver it. And it can be from the smallest of things, like, you got a flat tire. So how do you jugaad to get in your motorcycle from point A to point B? And some of you'll see the craziest duct tape and chicken wire and bubblegum solutions you've ever seen in your life at a small scale. And at a large scale, it's how to think about problems. That there's always a way forward, and it may not look pretty, but you can get it done.
Yeah, it's interesting because I thought of that, and you had like a 150-page business plan or something for Chai Pani when you first started. So you did quite a bit of planning, but that's planning that you do with an overarching goal of growth and having the flexibility to say, okay, well, like you said, the plan goes out the window. You got to be able to tweak the plan when necessary. The pandemic is, it's interesting because it's an example of things that, what you might call either black swans or tail events, or things that are very rare, have a huge, huge impact. And the funny thing about those things, are not funny, but the interesting thing is, like, that's what history's made of, right? It's all these random, unplanned, major events that have this huge impact that we could never even imagine a plan for, and they just change everything. I mean, that's everything from like World War II to 9/11, which we just had an anniversary of that, to this pandemic. And it underscores, I think, the importance of being optimistic in terms of wanting to grow, but also being, you could say, pessimistic or conservative with having some cushion to deal with stuff like this. And I want to address that as a restaurant owner, as a successful restaurant owner, a group of restaurants, as well as, so from a business side and a personal side, talk about how you have enough margin or redundancy in your financial planning for this. Because I've seen, restaurants that went under almost like that, which, it's a tough business. It's a small margin business. It's a business of pennies. But boy, if you're not planning for something, broadly planning for something that could have a big impact, you got problems. So talk about the financial side of this, Meherwan, and how you addressed that prior to this, and if anything has changed with that since this happened.
It's a really good question, and obviously one that I've been thinking about a lot. Like, could we have planned to have a better cushion, right, financially? And
Yeah.
Okay, so at the risk of sounding like, I'm all about storytelling and parables, there's an old story about an Indian king who's considered the wealthiest king in India. I mean, his legend, his fame for how rich his kingdom was legendary, and for what a great and how loved he was by his people. Right, he was beloved by his people.
Uh-huh.
And a visiting king came to meet him one day, and as part of the tour, asked to see the royal treasury because he had heard of these wonders that this king had, of this untold wealth. So the king happily said absolutely and took him to the treasury building, and they went inside and it was completely empty, nothing in there. And the visiting king was shocked. He said, there's nothing here. There's no gold sacks of gold coins and all this wealth I heard about. Like, where is it all? And the king said, I don't need this. He says, everything I've received, I've given back to my people. And because when I need it from them, all I have to do is put the call out, and these people will give me everything I need, if I ever needed it myself. And the legend goes, as an example, to prove the point, he sent a message out to his kingdom that his king needed money, resources, whatever. And 2 days later, the treasury was full from Florida people, as people from all over the kingdom poured in to help. Now, it's not something that I think about every day, but it really forced me to think about, in this time, what were the assets that I had if I didn't have money, if I didn't have that money put aside? Because none of us did well. I mean, even with the restaurant grouping as large as we had, we didn't have, enough money put aside to weather a storm like this. Everything we had was being continuously invested in growth. But what we did have was an amazing team, an amazing group of people, relationships that we had built, over the years with people that we supported and were loyal to and trusted and passed it forward to. And what I've been shocked, and not shocked isn't the right word, I guess the plan then was that, okay, we need to survive. Well, let's reach back out to our friends, our investors, our banks, the people we built relationships with, the people that we owe money to that we've, always been a great customer with, and see if we can work with them to create the cushion that we need to see through this time. And lo and behold, I mean, 90% of the time, yes, the people that we owed money to said, hey, don't worry about it. Our investors that we were supposed to send a distribution out said, hey, I don't need that right now. You need it more than I do. Employees that were well off said, don't pay me this month, or don't pay me for 2 months. I got a cushion. I can stay with my family. So the cushion that we have was building out a team that we were always been there for 10 years. And now that team, and the team isn't just internal, it's an external team. I count you, Will, as part of the team. You are a perfect example of a vendor said, hey, I know times are tough. Don't worry about paying that monthly invoice for Schedulefly, right? Those things, that's the same as cash. It's the same as having money in the bank. And I'd rather have that relationship where somebody says, hey, you banked with me. Now I'm going to put deposits in your bank to help you out. Then just hoard the money and constantly try to just grow a pot of money, because unless that money's in circulation as a business and being used, whether it's taking care of your people, paying your bills, growing your business, it's not doing any good. If anything, it's taking away from building relationships and growing business. So yeah, I'd love to say, oh man, we had a nice bank of money because I planned for this day. We didn't. But we did have wealth in other ways.
Is there a word for that? Is it karma? I don't know.
Karma? I don't know.
You had a lot of equity in the bank of karma, man.
Yeah.
It's a great point, man. That reminds me of that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. You ever seen that movie?
Oh, absolutely. Exactly. It's the same feeling. And here's what I'm saying. That wasn't a plan, is my whole point. But our goal as a company was to do the right thing. And when plans changed and we didn't have access to resources this way, well, we jugaaded it, and we reached out and made deals and got loans and figured it out. And the goal never changed. And we're now actually positioned to continue to grow We've even, some of the restaurants that we're in the process of building out, that we ran out of money to do, we had a developer say, I'll pay to build out the rest of your restaurant, Meherwan, because I believe in you. I would not offer this to other tenants, but I'm going to offer it to you because of your track record and relationship and what a great tenant you've been with us in the past. So that's what I mean. So we're actually able to grow. We're opening new places because of a new way of looking at relationships with developers and landlords.
That's fantastic, man. What's next? What are you growing? What are you opening next?
So we're finishing out our Optimist Hall build out that was in the works, but we had pulled the plug on it, essentially thinking that we didn't have money halfway through its build out. And that's a situation in which, you know, the developer and the landlord worked with us, say, let's finish this. We believe in this project. And we became partners in the project instead of just, you know, a landlord-tenant relationship. Another, one of my landlords came
Optimist
up
Hall,
to me.
that's here in Charlotte.
Yeah. Oh, it's sorry, what did you say, Bill? You broke up there.
Yeah, I think my connection, it's funny. I think my unplanned, my internet connection's not great and my hound dog keeps howling. I think Optimist Hall's the one here in Charlotte, right? North of Uptown?
Correct. Yeah, that's Uptown Charlotte, so that'll be finished. Okay. And then we're actually moving forward and putting 2 more concepts in Optimist Hall. We're doing a Spicewalla pop-up, and we've got another concept we're working with them just because of how well that relationship worked out. And it's an opportunity to grow with completely creative thinking, with a whole new way of looking at how to partner up on these deals. The same with Pond City Market. You know, we went from, hey, we don't know if you can pay our bills, to now signing LOIs on 2 kiosks in there to do something new, again, because we re-examined the partnership and the relationship between the developer, landlord, and the tenant, and how we can just be in it together. And then our landlords in Asheville, came up to us, our Pani landlord, and basically said, Meherwan, you have paid our mortgage for the last 11 years, always on time, never missing a beat, and you have helped us pay this building down. So now we are going to return the favor and not charge you rent until you can get back on your feet. You know, freeing up cash flow then to do other things with it. So because of that, we're able to open a small new concept in Asheville. And I'm being vague with the names because we haven't announced it to the press yet. Yeah. But it's a concept that we're opening in a small footprint in Asheville. That should open in a couple of months. And I'll let you know what it is once the word's out.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
So,
I love that. So
congratulations. So we're looking at 6 new openings in the next 10 to 12 months, you know, under the new rules of the pandemic. And I'm thinking about these openings in the terms of these being well suited for a post-COVID world, a post-pandemic world. Not to say that we'll be in this mode forever, but it's definitely helped the thinking and the plan of saying, oh, well, how do we build restaurants that have lower overhead, smaller footprints, that can pivot to take out easily? And if something like this were to happen again, have more flexibility and cushion in helping us instead of these large, you know, 10,000 square feet, Buxton Hall style, you know, temples to food. We're now moving to small, comfortable, easy, approachable, affordable, you know, family-oriented places that I think there's going to still be a demand for even after this is over.
Do you think that as this passes through and you know, you think forward a year or 2 from now, what are your thoughts on people needing to gather together in places like yours and your peers around the country? Because I feel like that's something we're hardwired for. I think we've been doing that for the history of humanity, and I think we need that. Yeah. So there are a lot of people that say this changes everything, and there'll be nobody. I just don't. I don't know that I'm there yet. I think that people will feel more and more comfortable, and just as another horrible event, 9/11, where people were saying this changes everything, and there are all these different narratives going on. Then, you know, things kind of gradually got back to pretty much where they were, except for security lines at the airport. I feel like people need to be together and they need to gather. But then I think of a place like Buxton Hall, you got all this space so you can kind of maybe manage it. Then you got a place like Pani where the vibe, a lot of that is just densely packed. Everybody's, near each other and it's happening and it's like got this vibrant energy. Is that something that we'll be able to continue with, or do you think that'll change more permanently, that kind of vibe?
No, I think absolutely you're right. People want to be able to, be together. We're social beings. We want to be in the company of others. We want to be in a busy hustle and bustle place. That'll all come back. It'll take some time. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I think there'll be a long tail as, the entire population either slowly gets immunized or gets immunity or, it'll take a while to come back. So I absolutely foresee a future for a place as large as Buxton Hall or as intimate as Pani absolutely still being there. But what's changed for me is not having all my eggs in one basket, so to speak. If I'm going to be in the restaurant business, then I need to take into account the fact that something like this could happen again, which forces us to not be social, which keeps us apart. But so how do you build a restaurant group that can account for that? Is it the physicality of the spaces? Is it the concepts? Or is it, like you said, a cushion, that can help you see through a time like that again? So that's what I'm working on, is trying to figure out what the path is to create concepts and spaces that can work in both situations. I think it also will help us re-examine some of the overheads, the kind of rents that people were paying for restaurant spaces. It works at 100% capacity, does not work if you were ever at 50% capacity. So I think some of the relationship with the numbers will also change when you look at that. And it may be that, if I want a Buxton Hall type experience in the future, well, it may not be in an urban, dense, 10,000 square foot building where rents are sky high. It may be somewhere on the outskirts, but where you still have the space for that kind of experience, but rents are cheaper. So I think we'll all as restaurateurs figure this out, but restaurants are not going anywhere. We've been doing this since the beginning of time. There have been plagues and earthquakes and disasters and probably there'll be all of those in the future too. And we'll still get together and commune in a group and eat together like we did at the beginning of the dawn of mankind.
Totally agree. 100%, man. Not surprised you feel the exact same way. Well, I like the thought of diversification, and I also like the idea that you built a really powerful brand, and I think people connect with brands. So whatever you do, particularly in situations like this, the default is, okay, well, sure, maybe I'm cooking at home more, but nobody wants to cook at home all the time. They want somebody to do something for them. So then they start looking for the brands that they care about, the brands they trust, whatever it is. If it's Tripani's got this family takeout meal, or Meherwan's going to go on Instagram and show me how to cook, or whatever it is, it just underscores, I think, the importance of really establishing a very clearly defined, welcoming brand that people will latch on to even more, perhaps, when something's gone awry. So, and I may have had 10 different places I went to, or a dozen before that. Now I'm not going out as much. Maybe I'm trying to save a little more money. Whatever. Now there's like 3. Well, hopefully that's going to be, do you feel that way? That really underscores how important it is to, across your brand, across every platform, to build that kind of a relationship? Absolutely.
It is who we are. We're storytellers, and we created a brand, and we were talking about our spaces, and one of the things that I said to the team at one point, because we were looking at in the early days, like, will we be able to reopen in this space again? And I said, Pani is not this space. Pani is us. Yeah. We're a brand, and this is portable. We can take this anywhere and into any area. We can leave the space and go up in another space, and Chai Pani is still alive because it's an idea, it's a concept, it's not a location. Yes, the location adds to the experience. You know, when you go to Buxton, it absolutely is an enhancement, it's an add, and but Buxton isn't the location. It's a story. It's Elliot's story. It's a story of, you know, of what he wanted to do with barbecue. And it's the same with Chai Pani, and it's the same with Botiwala, and even Spicewala. So again, you know, did I know how important that would be back in the day? No, we were doing it naturally, organically, and intuitively. But now, if I had to give a business class in the restaurant world, I wouldn't be able to stress enough the importance of building a brand that you can pick up and take with you if you had to, and recreate it somewhere else over and over again. So, you know, the second Chai Pani that opened will prove that it's a brand. It's not about a location. It's an idea. It's a story. And thank God we did that, because now we can take that brand, like you said, apply it to prepared meals, take home, cooking classes, and then we created the Spicewala brand, and that, you know, coexists now because those brands can play off of each other. Like you said, when I'm doing a cooking class, we can talk to folks about using Spicewala at home to cook with while cooking a Chai Pani recipe or a Buxton recipe. And then we can collaborate with other brands, which we're doing a lot of. So we create, you know, help other people create a brand that's a collaboration between two. I mean, a perfect example is Burial Beer. They use their spices in making the beer, but they also had a restaurant, and we created a collaborative spice blend that's for their restaurant, but is also branded with Spicewala. And I feel like that allows your brand to extend and partner up with other brands. And doing that's really important too, because there's a multiplier effect when you do that. You know, you get people that are not inside your circle seeing your brand when you do that a lot. So I've always thought of the brand as this living thing that has its own energy and its own ability to connect outside of the space. And that's why we do events and you know, and take the brand on the road with us to show to people that it's not just the restaurant. As long as there's a representative and a story, that location doesn't matter.
You mentioned story a few times, Meherwan. I want to ask you about that because you said, you know, we're storytellers, and you really understand the power of a story and a narrative. Tell me a little bit more about that, about why that's so important, particularly with the brand. But why do you keep saying we're storytellers?
Well, it's the way I look at my restaurants and our concepts, and the way I look at restaurants is like, a restaurant isn't just there to make a meal per se. I mean, well, let me take that back. There are plenty of restaurants that just serve food, and you go there just for the food, and most of them fall in the fast food category, or not, right? It's a place that where I don't want to cook at home. Let me go there and cook over here, and that's all well and good. But to create a brand, you have to tell a story in your space. And it happened for me, I guess, again, just organically and naturally, because we were introducing this idea 11 years ago of Indian street food. And I needed to explain to people what that was and what the difference was between Indian food and Indian street food. And bear in mind, most people didn't even understand Indian food very well. Like, you know, it was very stereotyped. So we painted this picture of how this is the kind of food eaten by, you know, Indians all over the country on the streets, in between meals, after work, while going to work, in between breaks. And it's fun, and it's vibrant, and it's ever-changing, and it's evolving. And then we created sort of the look to tell the story. So when somebody walks into Chai Pani, you know, they're not just eating Indian street food. They feel like they're stepped into India, like a little piece of it, for an example. And the story of that food and how it got there, it's a part of the experience. And it's worked really, really well for us. And it's worked for Buxton Hall because that's a story too. It's worked for Spicewala. I mean, the story of spices and how even America was founded as a country because Christopher Columbus left Spain looking for new trade routes to get to India for spices, you know. That's why when he ran into America and thought he was in India, everybody here, he called them Indians, you know, but he was looking for spices. So that's a story too. And I have a real hard time understanding how you could have a business especially a restaurant, serving food without telling the story of who you are. Sorry, talking too fast. Where you came from and why you do what you do. It goes back to the last thing is I'll talk about is storytelling is about telling people the why behind why you're doing what you're doing, and I feel like that is, that's the key to engaging with people and people understanding you is when they understand why you do what you do. It's context. So anyway, I make it sound like, oh, it's this creative thing and blah, blah, blah. I'm saying, again, it's a core business lesson. I mean, I don't know if you know of Simon Sinek, a great speaker. He wrote the book, Start with Why.
Yeah.
And Start with Why is, what's your story? Like, not how you did it, but it's what we do.
Yeah, and that underscores the importance of authenticity in that story too. I think people really they can figure that out pretty quickly if you're authentic. Seems like perhaps that's become even more important now that people have had the time, the inclination, the impetus to consider who they do business with, perhaps even more so than ever. And that would be consumers as well as business owners like yourself, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming a part of how people consume. They want to align their value systems with the value system of who they do business with, right? And the best way to convey what you care about, what you value, is by explaining your why, by telling the story of why you do what you do. And, I mean, you and I know this, that storytelling is so powerful. There's no greater way to convey an idea, whether it's a business idea, a marketing idea, a creative idea, than by telling stories. I mean, it goes back again to the beginning of time. It's how information was actually passed. It's how knowledge was passed on in the early days, was through telling stories. And I still believe it's one of the most powerful ways to convey an idea is to tell it in the form of a story.
Well, I agree 100%. I mean, everything from like when you're, I have 3 kids. I'm just running around out there, goofing around the yard right now. And I think about when he was little, my other 2 were little, yours as well. What do they say at night at bedtime? Tell me a story, right? If you're up in front of an audience and you're going to do a presentation, I think one of the most powerful things you can say to start out is, hey, let me tell you a story. I mean, you immediately get everybody's attention when you tell a story, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, our faith, that if you believe in faith and spirituality in God, it's told to us through stories. I mean, and this is, it's an incredible, powerful human and business tool. And we do that. I mean, one of the things we do when we have a staff join our team is Molly, my wife, who is our director of hospitality and our director of mind blasting, as we call it. She has storytelling hour with new employees where we sit around and we tell stories of legendary things that happen at Pani. And we ask the team to share their stories. I mean, the new hires of, where they came from, to illustrate these ideas and these concepts they were talking about, like, enlightened hospitality and service and the difference between hospitality and service. Well, the storytelling hour, that's when people get it. Because you can sit there and talk to them all day long and show them PowerPoints and have all the points of service and all the philosophical stuff you're supposed to talk about. But that storytelling hour, she gets more feedback on that from our team saying like, oh, that's when they understood what we're trying to get at, who we are, and what we need to do. And we keep a book, a book of legends, so that every time somebody in our team does something that just blows their mind, we record it so that we can share it as part of a story. And hopefully 10 years from now, we'll be telling a story of what things that happened during the pandemic,
Last thing I want to let you ask you about, and I'll let you go, Meherwan, but I do want to ask, just out of curiosity, what other brands, either in or outside of hospitality, do you admire, slash follow, or do you think have done a good job telling their story?
Well, you know, in the early days, my inspiration came a lot from Zappos, you know, reading that book, Delivering Happiness, with Tony Hsieh's book.
Yeah.
I got a lot of inspiration from Zingerman's, you know, the group out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, right? And Ari, and I read a lot of his books and how he thought about his businesses. I mean, I think the guy's absolutely brilliant. You know, it's not a business, but it's still, you know, like a business. Simon Sinek's books, I read those a lot, and those were really inspiring. And then Apple, you know, as a company, their ability to tell a story, their ability to explain the why behind what they do, I've always found incredibly powerful, and the way they do it. So I've always looked at them a lot, you know, especially in the early days when Jobs was still around. and let's see, what are some of the other companies? And then groups. Danny Meier's Union Square Hospitality Group was a huge inspiration, especially his early book, you know, Setting the Table. I mean, that, and we looked at them a lot for how they did things. But now I will say that there's a whole new genre of, you know, D2C businesses that are smart and hip and cool and do a great job with branding and storytelling. So even though I don't know much about their culture, I do look at the way they convey who they are and their messaging and how they do it. And it's inspiring. And you know, there's too many to name. There's so many of them out there right now, but it's always cool to see, like, oh my God, these guys get it. You know, I mean, even a company like Casper, the mattress company, like, these guys took the most non-sexy, most ubiquitous, like, you don't even think about mattress things, and turned it into, you know, this thing, you know, where all of a sudden you're talking about your mattress, right? And how cool it is. And I love Tesla, you know, for the same reason. And what inspires me with that company is, you know, less about their storytelling, but their ingenuity, their ability to jugaad and get things done. I mean, when they opened that tent factory in the desert so they could keep up production of the Model 3, I looked at that and said, that's jugaad. That's straight up 101 jugaad. Like, you don't let anything stop you from getting done what you need to get done. And that's how you do it. Just think outside the box. I mean, it's not even the thing outside the box. It's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's that mindset, you know. And so those are a few of the companies that I look to.
You know, that saying, desperation is the mother of all invention. I mean, it's almost like if you have that mindset all the time, like, there may be some value, I think sometimes, at least I try to do this personally a little bit, in forcing yourself into constraints that you may not have to, but just to make yourself think really creatively. It's, you know, it really, when you are desperate, you will come up with a solution, you know, but it's easy to not have that sort of mindset and have that creativity when you have no need to be desperate. But when you are, I mean, look at, like, what will come from this pandemic, all the statistics of people that have, all this stuff is horrible. But long term, I guarantee medicinal and technology innovations are probably 10 times greater than what they were a year ago because of this. Taking the tough situation, this constraint, and turning it into something that can lead to some positive things, which is God, and which is your mindset all along, man. Well, I'll share one more thing. I agree with you on all those companies. And I realized that Apple was telling me the story so well that I was spending all this money buying these new phones all the time and buying their, you know, then I have to buy the cases, and then I have to buy then I finally, you know, I broke my iPhone a few weeks ago, and I was like, I'm done. So I love their story, but I went and got this $130 Alcatel flip phone, and I took the savings and I bought Apple stock because I think they're so good at telling stories.
That's a great story. Love it.
All right, man. Listen, I appreciate it. I'm going to let you go. Tell everybody I said hey, and appreciate your time, appreciate your energy, your passion, your enthusiasm. And I know that your brand is the story you're telling. You're getting more and more followers every day, and they're enjoying watching this story unfold. And just really admire what you do, man, and appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Will. Same here. And don't forget, I mean, you know, for as long as I've known you, Will, you've been a storyteller too. So keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you. Thanks,
All right,
Mary.
Will. See ya. Take care.
Take care.
All the best. You
All right.
too.
Bye.
Bye.